We are live. Welcome to this latest episode of Totally Unscripted. My name's Martin Hoxie, and as always, I'm joined by Charles and Steve. Hi, Charles and Steve.
Hello, Martin.
Hi, Charles.
So we missed you last time, Steve, so it's great to have you back on the show.
Good to be back. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I guess we're kind of midway through the season. We haven't decided how many episodes are in the season in our reboots, but I think there's definitely appetite for more in the new year. But I thought nice way, given the season of giving is on us, is to look at the Google Workspace gallery, or the Google Workspace Solutions Gallery, I think is the proper title, Charles?
It is the Google Workspace Solutions Gallery, which is a long title and not a better acronym. So, yeah.
So this is a nice little space where they're basically examples of Google Apps Script code, many of them contributed by Googlers, but also a number contributed by the members of the general public. So is there a bit more you want to say about this, Charles, before we bring our guests?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, if you're not familiar with the Solution Gallery, it hangs off the Google Workspace developer site. So really super easy to find. The reason we built it, hopefully is obvious, but it may not be. What we find is a lot of folks who come to do, G Suite / Workspace development are really trying to figure out how to build a solution specific just to a unique business problem. It may be their first time actually even venturing into building something. And so what happens is you land on this page, it's a little ominous, right? It's like you're going to be a developer and you're throwing off all these other coding topics and coding information. You're like, whoa, I'm just trying to learn some of these things here. And then when you look at a lot of the samples and the documentation, they're smaller nuggets. Even things like the hands-on labs or the code labs that are getting started are still very much more aimed at the technical aspect. And what we find is a lot of people want to kind of reverse engineer it. I have a problem, I need to learn how to solve a problem. Wouldn't it be great if I could see what the platform can do, kind of the art of the possible? Or wouldn't it be great if I had a learning resource that really tackled a problem that made sense to me? And so that was really kind of the impetus of the Solution Gallery, was to be a place where you could go, see what you could do, and learn more about it, and not necessarily require you to have a very vast developer knowledge. So really think of it as a learning tool. What we found out that it turned into, though, is a lot of folks also think of it as a marketplace, right? They come in here and go, oh, wow, I did a Google search. I need to build a mail merge. For example, Martin's did a great mail merge contribution, and they just want to install something and run with it. So we've kind of seen it morph into a couple different things, but at its heart, it's really a learning sample. And something I want to stress is we actually take a look a little further more what it's really all about, what it is, and frankly, what it isn't. And so we want to make sure that people understand kind of what does a Solution Gallery contribution look like and what to expect of it.
That's great, Charles. So I think we should bring Jasper on. Hello, Jasper. So
hi, Martin.
You are one of these people that has contributed, one of these examples of a Google Apps Script, as Charles was mentioning, to the Solutions Gallery. Do you want to just quickly mention what the solution is that you have in the gallery?
Yeah, it's basically a time writing tool. So based on the calendar, you select in the calendar, you record your time, and then from a Google spreadsheet, you synchronize it back into structured data and use it further on for reporting purposes. That's basically the generic idea, at least. So,
how did you decide that you wanted to? Well, I guess how did you know in the first place that you could contribute this solution, and how did you go about developing it?
I don't remember. I should have remembered, of course. I don't remember. I know this would be a question. It was mentioned in one of the chats, or I think it was an email, like, okay, did we have a plan? We would like to have a solution gallery. Do you have an idea? And yes, I had one, and it fits the model. At that point, it was asked, do you have some simple application that solves the problem? Well, lots of those simple applications, and I picked one that I think that really displays the power of Workplace. So the combination of Google Sheets and the calendar, and yeah, it's. I wanted to share that application. That was the whole idea.
So that's a great point. I want to also really elaborate on is this really was meant to be a community resource, and so we did reach out to folks. For example, I'm surrounded here by GDEs. You're all Google developer experts, and we did obviously ask the GDEs to contribute something. But Jasper, in your case, I love this story because you shared something that you built. Necessity is the mother of invention. You built something that you use, and you figured, well, other people don't want to reinvent the same wheel or could benefit from it. That's kind of how you got started. Creating a solution.
Yes, yeah, and for me, it solves a problem on a daily basis. Basically, like most people, I hate writing time, and so just a little bit about the application itself. My logic is okay. If you do something with time, where do you do time? That's in the calendar application, and so there you start. But still, you need structured data. And my problem is that I usually work on an hourly basis, multiple projects, multiple clients. So they have all kinds of systems, and none of the systems work my way. So basically what I do is I write the time in the calendar, synchronize it to the sheet, then organize it over there, and then I just copy paste it in all the different applications. And that model worked for me. For me, the funny part was once I've published it in the solution gallery, I got questions from people like, I was really surprised with what they were doing with the application. So for example, I have one person who runs a ballet, not a school, but a school, now let's call it a school for now, where he organizes all the classes and everything with that sheet. So he asked me questions like, can you do this, or can you do that, or things like that. Another thing also, it started as a tool primarily for myself. So the configuration was, okay, fill your configuration into the cell A1, put the calendar ID over there. And I started noticing that people didn't really know how to do that. So it pushed me to make it a little bit nicer. So for me, the feedback loop of the solution gallery is also very interesting. Seeing what people actually do with the application made it better.
Yeah, absolutely. The reach, just to give folks a little idea, Martin and Jasper both contributed solutions. The solution gallery itself is one of the most popular assets on the developer doc site for Workspace developers. It's in the 1 million page view range. So 1 million people have, tuned in or found it or discovered it, searched for it to figure out, how to get more out of the Workspace platform. So I love the fact that you're seeing people that are A, coming to learn, but also B, looking to solve problems. And frankly, without your solution, they'd probably still be trying to figure out how to cobble this together, or they would go elsewhere to look for, quote unquote, a canned solution.
So I was going to chime in. Looks like I have a little peer pressure to write one myself. So if I write one myself, should I expect the person reading the solution be at a certain level with technical capability, or could you elaborate on that?
That's a great question. Martin, Jasper, you get a lot of feedback. Who are your fan club?
Well, one of them is in the chat, I see now. That's my nephew. So sorry, I was distracted for a moment. That's the unscripted part, I guess. Who do you write it for? That was the question. For me, one little sidestep there, it's open source. That's also a very nice point. Basically my solution, you have a few choices. You can go and copy paste the code into your own sheet, or you can just make a copy of the existing sheet already. So at the end, if you don't want to program, you can just create a copy of my sheet. And a lot of people do that and end up sending me an email that, okay, not completely as I expected, or with additional questions. The code itself is very small. It's just like one page, and yeah, if you're more interested in that, if you want something specific, you can change it. So it's both. It's not specific. Either you make a copy of the sheet, use it as is. At the point, I just to make it easier for the other people, I made it in a way that if you copy the sheet, I'm 95% certain that it will work if you have your profile organized well in the Chrome browser. If that's okay, the application will work. If you want to program it yourself, you copy paste the code.
I think in response to your question, Charles, I find that quite difficult to answer because obviously the people who get stuck get in touch with you, but you don't. If they've used it and it solved their solution, they're fine. You never hear from them. I think the majority of people that get in touch with me, they similar to Jasper, they're wanting it to do slightly a bit more. But certainly when I was writing it, my solution, my focus was I wanted a really short, concise bit of code. I didn't want a sprawling solution that did hundreds of different things and a huge block of code. I wanted something as concise as possible, which was actually a challenge in itself.
Yes.
As a developer, to write something that was still readable to people so that they could pick up these little tips of how to use AppScript, and still give them something that was useful at the end of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so it's
sorry, and not to put you on the spot or frankly on a pedestal, Martin, you have the most popular solution in Solution Gallery, and we love to think part of it is because of your persona and image. But frankly, a mail merge is one of the most commonly asked for pieces of functionality.
The funny thing is, the main reason I chose that as an example to contribute was it was, I think it had just passed 10 years of Google AppScript, its birthday. And the very first demonstration that Jonathan Rochelle did when Google AppScript came out of beta was a mail merge. And so it was a homage, to celebrate 10 years. It's a 10-year-old problem that hasn't gone away.
Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. So it sounds like if there is some complexity to the solution, you're challenged to say, okay, how can I simplify this? Yeah. I'll use my skill set to take complexity to make it simple. So is that the exercise you basically went through? It sounds like you did.
Yeah, so I used tricks like, so I basically used the built-in spreadsheet UI. So, I could have done something with, HTML service and did a lovely UI around the whole thing. But it's basically, a browser, text input prompt. You could have done so, we all know that there's wonderful mail merge examples in the add-on marketplace. Romain Valard is probably behind most of them. But I think there's, those are great solutions in themselves, but obviously quite often they come with a cost implication. So I think for a lot of the people that do contact me, they are looking for something. They don't have programming experience and they have no budget. So they are looking for a quick solution at no cost. But it's quite interesting in terms of, Jasper, you mentioned getting feedback. It was actually useful for me as well, just to discover some of these kind of nuances around Google AppScript. And I think the one that stands out in my mind is as a mail merge, it's, I think it's using Mail app or Gmail app. So you got the two different services for sending mail. One of them can do Unicode characters. So if you like emojis, you use one of them and the other one doesn't. It just strips them out. So it's this weird nuance between the two services, which I'd never known until someone reported it as an issue, and then I went hunting down to find out why.
Yeah. So another topic just to throw out there, and I'm a lot interested in this one because it's something we're trying to figure out for the solution gallery, kind of the future of it. And so I know the bulk of the show we want to talk about is, creating a contribution. How do you go through the process? What is that like from a tactical standpoint? One thing I love to hear feedback on, and maybe throw it open to the guys in the forum here. There's 18 solutions up there now. They cover a wide range of things. Like I said, a couple are super popular. Both you guys are in the top 5 for the most popular solutions. What else would you all collectively, and folks listening in the community, what would you like to see the solution gallery evolve to? We know there's a couple submissions that are sitting in the GitHub right now that people are asking, but what do you think we could take this to? I mean, the last thing I want to do is just overcrowd it with solutions that kind of half work. But on the flip side, where do you think the future lies, or what's the sweet spot? Where should we take the solution gallery going forward?
One thought that I have is sometimes you can find apps that are like simple utilities, where it's all the fluff is gone. It does this one thing and it does it very well, and it's streamlined. Maybe it's a Google Drive thing. I want to search for all my untitled files and clean the thing up, something very specific. So I'm thinking more like a nice specific utility.
I was curious about utilities because if you look at a lot of the solutions already in there, they're very business centric. They solve a business problem and they teach you the technical aspects. But you're right. I mean, I have a set of slide utilities myself that I use when I create slide decks. And I was literally thinking this would really be a great solution showcase, but it's really much more of a technical, tactical, how do I, use AppScript to do something interesting versus solve a business problem. It's more of a, how do I make G Suite work the way I want it to? G Suite, Workspace. Still do it, by the way. I think a lot of us do, and it's going to take a while. But so yeah, right. You're right, Steve. I think utilities would be really super interesting. I know all of us write utilities to get through our day, but they're not specifically quote unquote a business topic. We found having that angle, focusing on business topics and solution names and solutions focused on solving business problems, really widens the umbrella of people coming in and looking at these. Like, as we all know, someone wants to come in and figure out how to iterate a bunch of slides, and they'll come look at the documentation and figure it out. But this is really attracting a whole new dimension of people. So it's kind of like, do we open it up or do we keep it, specifically focused on, problem solving that people would be attracted to? So it's really worth exploring, to do that.
I have a bit of a different perspective, because for me, solving the problem is basically my job. Thinking what problem to solve. Yeah, I see. And one of the things also happened. One of the users uses it for marketing, and to record the marketing hours. And he came back with another question, like, I would like to know how many emails there are in a specific label. There's completely no use for me. I would never think of such a solution. But for him, what he does is he sends out emails and he wants to calculate his responses. It's a very simple problem. And he asked me, and I actually used it as a basis for an article. So my suggestion would be more like I don't know the English word here, but where you let them submit ideas. I think there are tons of people out there who want solutions. And I would rather spend my time on building than because my solutions, except this one maybe, usually give me a problem, then I'll solve it. That's more my perspective.
That's a great point.
So we need to write a solution with upvote capability.
Exactly. That's also always a popular one. But I think the maybe indeed some way of submitting suggestions or that would be nice.
So we do. If you go to the page, I'm looking at the page now on my other screen. There is at the bottom saying we're growing the gallery. If you have suggestions, please submit feedback. A little window pops up. You can put your feedback in there. We have some feedback in there. I will be honest. A lot of the feedback we get is this solution needs to do this or fix one. This do that. We do get some ideas as well too. And so again, we're trying to figure out. The last thing we want to do is open it up to everybody and say, hey, we'll build all your solutions, because we won't. I mean, this is a community tool. It's a little, it's a little less sourced than we'd like it to be. And so it's kind of be careful what you offer, because you may not be able to respond to it. But again, it'd be great to see what people would like to see or take it. And if there are super popular solutions, if we can crowdsource something, AKA the next mail merge, it would be great to actually do it. And then throw it out to the community who wants to build it.
I like the idea of people submitting what is your problem, and just seeing what comes to the top. If their problem is your mail solution doesn't work, and, I might quietly walk away. But I think there's a lot of people out there, willing to, if they do see something, it's a bit like Stack Overflow. It's funny, Stack Overflow is similar in terms of looking at Google Apps Script code samples, and quite often I find myself there. I used to be more of a contributor, but I found that people were answering questions far quicker than I could. So, but those are very short, concise, very particular things about how do I find a file in a folder and so on. Where you're doing more kind of developed solutions, as Jasper and myself have kind of hopefully provided. Those don't really sit into Stack Overflow, and I don't feel there's a place right now. So I think the Solutions Gallery is a nice kind of home for them.
It's also, I mentioned before, but I find the open source part pretty important, and that makes it also very different from the App Store. And by definition, open source, if it is something you might want to tweak yourself or have tweaked a little bit. So for me, it's also a very, maybe not a simple, but a nice way of contributing to open source. So I don't want to contribute to a huge project or anything that's way too complex. And this is nice in between. Still, you have to be a little bit into the open source tools like GitHub and Markdown and stuff like that. But on the other hand, it's open source. If somebody asks me, do you have open source out there? Yeah, I can say yes with a real example out there. So it's an easy way to contribute, I think.
Absolutely. Talk about the process specifically, and you mentioned obviously it's open source and there's some things you need to know. One of the things that I loved hearing from both Martin and Jasper when we talked a little earlier today was the way people actually approach your solution, right? So that they want to get it, they go to the page, they see it, they love it. It's fairly straightforward to actually be the consumer, though, not the contributor, but the consumer of your solution. Can you tell us what you like about that, or how that works in your specific solution?
To submit a contribution.
To consume your solution, actually use it.
Okay. Well, in my case, it's you have two choices. Either you click on the link and you make a copy of the sheet and you start. So that just works. The other way is if you really want to understand, but same as Martin explained, your code is out there. You want to look at it's something you have built. I'm kind of proud of it. So you make sure it is. No, it's only one page, but it needs to be almost perfect or maybe perfect. So I would have, if somebody asked me something about the code, that would really interest me because that's what I like. But most of the people, they just copy the sheet, and that's okay. That's where I get my other feedback on what doesn't work or works on scale.
I think both of us as well, we wrote supplemental blog posts. I think you had a Medium blog post.
Yes,
Jasper around it, and I'd had a supplemental blog post as well. So that was really designed to answer some of the usual, kind of regular questions that I was getting. So I actually submitted an update to my solution. It was I revisited it for V8, the V8 runtime. And as part of that, I kind of try and supplemented the actual solution gallery submission with additional information on my own site about how to do some of the tweaking bits and pieces.
For me, I have by the way the same, but basically based on the feedback of the users, I made an update and I'm planning a blog post on it. And my own situation, I became a freelancer a year ago. So I actually also use it for budgeting, and for me, so I copy paste into my own financial system now from my sheet, and I compare. Okay, are the numbers in my sheet the same as in my administration that I outsource somewhere? So for me, it's now it has a broader perspective, and the application itself got better because of the feedback. And I'm planning a second blog post on that, on describing that whole. Describing the scenarios that you can use it. So that's what you get back. You learn to know your application better, basically.
There's a comment from Yagi in the YouTube about in the YouTube chat about a lot of his. For those not familiar with Yagi's, I abbreviate him to Yagi. Yagisdode.com. You'll Google him, you'll find him. So one of our newest GDEs on the program. So he's talking about the fact that people are looking for components to pull out and drop elsewhere, and I think that's what the solutions are actually doing. They're providing, I think quite substantial bits of code that people can pull out and drop into their project, expand on. There's some nice solutions in there with various technologies, for interacting with various products, including YouTube and a whole host of other lovely things that you can get into, and just have that as part of a project that you're doing. I think as well for me that it was basically how I learned how to app script was, there used to be tutorials. They might still be hanging around there on the developer site. We obviously have the code labs now, but these are more kind of illustrative. There's more narration about what you're actually doing. Similar to the gallery solutions. That was one of the things, Jasper, I found in terms of the description that you submitted with the solution gallery. I felt really restricted in how much I could say, which is why I ended up writing a blog post about it. It's like I felt I had to be, very kind of, these are the steps you do to do it. These are the things that you should be aware of in terms of, headlines like quotas and things. And it's like, bye, see you. Did you find actually writing the instructions quite difficult for your solution, or was it very straightforward for you?
The problem with limit instruction, it's like documentation. You have to do it. So yeah. I remember struggling a little bit with the markdown, and somebody read it again to me. I shared the link, and somebody told me, you should update the text, make it a little bit nicer. So it's not really my thing to write that type of story. Now the blog post I really like, because that's another narrative. Yeah. So to be honest, I don't remember. I forgot it and I just pushed it away. But yeah. I did like the markdown part that for me it was basically the first time I actually had to use it, and I started to, since then I appreciated it more. So that part I learned something.
A couple of things. First of all, there's a couple of great add-ons for markdown converters for docs. Markdown, I'm not writing it myself either, and you learn how to use it. So that's awesome plug for a couple of those tools out there. But I do want to ask, and you mentioned, first of all, Yagi-san, a Toad, and when I say that wrong, who chimed in. His real name is Scott Donald. He's a brand new GDE. He has not contributed to the solution gallery yet. So, Scott and anybody else out there listening, Martin, Jasper, what are the first steps? How do you actually go about it officially with the process today? If you wanted to say, I want to build one, what's the first thing you do?
Oops.
Do you want to? I know the answer, Jasper, but I don't.
Please do, because I was the first one who contributed, so my process went through email. So on that part, I don't remember how I could start. Yeah, I remember how I started, but now it's probably through the website.
So well, I think that and Charles might correct me on this. It's still through GitHub. They basically created a template where you can put your initial idea in. So they're just looking for very brief kind of, an overview of what it is that you're proposing. And then it's essentially handed, if people are familiar with GitHub, it's handled as an issue ticket. So you'll get a yay or nay, whether or not to do more. So, and there's a template to you use, if you do get the EA, which is nice, in terms of the structure for the written side of it, so the instructions that we were just talking about, and also the code that you're going to include as well. So that then gets basically you open a pull request. So this is, if you're familiar with Git and versioning, you make a pull request and it might get some comments. So usually someone from Google will just review both your code and your instructions and make any comments about changes that you need to make. And then fingers crossed it gets accepted into the repository and published. So
great stage setting for that, Martin. If you wouldn't mind, put up this addresses for folks. They can find it easy, but github.com/Google Workspace/solutions is where you can find that. And so, Martin, you're exactly right. You go to the GitHub and you mention it. I will talk about it and address on our side. Initially, when the gallery was launched, we went out and we got a bunch of solutions in there, and you guys got some early candidates in there. And you may have noticed, in fact, there's a few folks with solutions sitting in the gallery already, or sitting in the Git repository already, and it's been a little quiet responding to it. And I just wanted to actually address it. First of all, our founder of the Google Workspace project, Google Solution Gallery project, actually moved teams, and so it kind of went a little quiet for a while. And so my team is trying to figure out how do we kind of re-inspire and bring it back to life in 2021. And so that's something we're hoping to do. But if you do have an entry in there and you're wondering why has it been a little quiet, that's been one of the reasons. I want to talk to the success a little, like I mentioned. Nearly around 1 million page views of Solution Gallery items. There you go. Thank you for that. And so the neat thing about this, and we don't know if it's a chicken and egg scenario, but we've seen exponential growth in AppScript this year. And by the way, most of the solutions are AppScript centric, and that's obviously where they sit. The Solution Gallery sits on the AppScript site for developers, and that's currently the focus. But we don't know if it's chicken or egg. Is it the gallery driving AppScript? Is it more AppScript driving gallery? Either way, we've seen people have been doing exponentially more AppScript projects in 2020 than ever before. So this is an 11-year-old platform or tool set, if you prefer to call it. That's all of a sudden, I don't know if it's just because 2020 is 2020 or if it's pandemic, people at home and trying to be more creative or whatever the case may be. But the enthusiasm is there. And so we're trying to figure out, what does that mean to the future of this? How do we push it? I know that if you would have saw the State of the Script show a couple of weeks ago with Keith Einstein, who's the PM, one of the most important things that they're looking at is around this kind of reuse code repository solution building aspect. How do they build that closer to the product? So that's another reason why we've kind of stalled a little, and I'm going to be very honest here. We're trying to figure out, do we get that in the product or do we keep it here in the Solution Gallery? How does that work? The good news is we know it's working. Now we're trying to figure out, what's the proper home, what's the proper approach. So again, feel free to contribute your ideas or whatever, but we'd love to get that feedback on the importance of it, whether you're a consumer or you're a creator. If you guys want to put more in, let us know what we need to do. If you're listening in, you're like, wow, I'd like to see this, or I'd like to become a contributor. Again, we'd love to know and see what the enthusiasm is around it.
I wonder if...
So Charles, I was going to interrupt. I'm sorry. As a follow-up to that, if a consumer submits, how does that match with maybe folks like Martin and Jasper to say, yeah, I can provide that solution? How do you match the consumer request with?
That's a great question. We don't have an official way of doing that yet. And behind the scenes, obviously, everybody on this call is a GDE or a Googler. But one of the ideas we had is, how do we funnel out to GDEs? But we don't want to be, saying it's just GDE opportunity only. So you're right. We should definitely come up with a way on how do we actually make that more inclusive. And we're thinking about how do we do that, right? How do we let on to do it? Because there's a lot of folks that aren't GDEs that I have seen do submissions. There's a lot of folks that aren't technically GDEs that have phenomenal assets and solutions that I've seen on the web that I'd love to make those into solution galleries. And one of the things we know a lot of people monetize their code and prefer to do that in that format. This is community contribution. This is open source. This is not that. But I mean, Martin and Jasper, you both said people have found you or discovered you or asked you for more work. I'm sure there's, Jasper being an independent contractor, I'm sure you've had opportunities to monetize this as well. Just specifically on the site, we don't do that, and we won't do that. But if it leads people to you, then there's probably a benefit there, correct?
For me, it's the visibility is the value some people just say, okay, you're the one who built that stuff, and it's just nice. Not everything has to bring money, in my opinion. Open source for me is a given. I use open source, so I contribute, and I'm repeating myself, but especially it's a very easy way to contribute because it fits our work. It's what I do, AppScript, among other things, but still building something in AppScript is my comfort zone. I like it.
I was just wondering, Charles, as you're speaking, maybe that should be the GDE entrance exam. You have to submit to the gallery.
I like that.
And we'll see how you do.
We know Steve owes us one then.
No, and you go.
No, the Git process. It can be a bit. I had some problems with it. We discussed it before. Just a few tips for me from my side. If you get stuck, just throw everything away and start a new pull request. That worked in my time, especially because there is a part where you need to sign an agreement with Google, which is fine in my opinion, but. Basically, I submitted it I did 2 commits, one with one name and the other with another name, and then some bot got completely confused, and then the process got stuck. It happened again with my changes, and then I messed up the pull request, and then Git becomes very strange, and then Git is also very easy. Just copy paste, remove the .git library, and create a new pull request, and then it went through. So sometimes just start over with it, and then Git is a nice thing.
My tip with that is GitHub desktop. I can't do anything with the command line. So I need menus. People, please give me a menu. This is why. Perhaps I like AppScript so much as I don't have to do anything with the command line to get it working. I think that is, I know for the Google AppScript community in particular, there's a lot of people who haven't, come from a less traditional, they're not a developer background, so they can still produce very innovative and useful solutions. But when you start saying, then just open the issue ticket, and when you get the pull request level, commit, and Bob's your uncle. So I think that there's a definite curve there. I can see why, using GitHub, I think in terms of just making, the code open source and very easy to fork and, repurpose, as Jasper's mentioned, I can see lots of pros around there. Maybe the whole submission process needs to be a bit more user-friendly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, one of the challenges we always struggle with the Workspace developer audience is it's one of the largest ranging audiences from really truly professional developers to folks who this is their first attempt to build something. And again, they get sucked in by, oh, look, I can build a mail merge and make it work for me. Let me dive into that with both fists. And then they're like, pull request who? You guys, you leverage the, copy the document and my code goes with it. There are a number of solutions in the gallery that are a little harder than that, right? You have some services you have to enable. You start getting people, prompted for, oh, what's your GCP project? And they're like, oh, wait, warning. What does that mean? And don't touch my credit card and what's going on? And so there is some of that. And that's why, again, part of it was meant to really be a learning sample for developers at large, understanding that it's not really going to be for everybody. And frankly, that's been one of the the challenges we've seen with the library. Some people go there expecting to install this thing, it just works, and they're on their way. And that really wasn't what it was built for. It was more like, hey, we're going to share the knowledge of this code with you. You're going to explore and learn the solution, but it's yours at the end of the day, not ours, and you need to make it work. Which is why you guys obviously aren't in the support business of these things, unless out of the goodness of your community heart. But it's not the the end all be all. And we've noticed that. I mean, a lot of folks. I mean, we see a lot of requests in there. Actually, I'd like this. I'd like that. This didn't work in my situation, or I can't make this work. And so there's obviously that in any development environment. But here we are, people expecting. I searched for this. I found this. It must work the way I knew it.
I would like to start a new little thread in our conversation. So Gmail is very popular, and not too long ago, if you're an organization, it looks a little different. You've got your mail, you've got chats, and you've got chat rooms, and Meet, right? And if you're like me, you start kind of like Gmail, and then Drive is right next to you. But I'm wondering, in your opinion, talking about bots, right? If chat rooms is now in our face via the Google Gmail, do you think there could be a lot of potential use of chat rooms now, since it's there and visible, that we could provide solutions via bots? Because I see one in the gallery.
So absolutely, there is one in the gallery, and as you know, I mean, that's a great point, Steve. By the way, so it's really expanding the footprint, and the majority of automation behind G Suite / Workspace is done in sheets. Like 80% of people who development are doing sheet automation. But there's so many more things you can do. And ironically, not ironically, the number one and number two APIs for the platform are Gmail and Drive, which you just mentioned. Bots they were actually dropped a couple of years ago. They came out in 2018, but people really didn't discover them for the main reason that chat didn't become prime, right? It was a little separate app, was off to the side, people didn't see it. But right now it's front and center, right? You have this one experience for your Gmail environment, which is tying these things in. And so you're absolutely right. It's going to become way more beneficial in 2021 for two reasons. You're seeing adoption get widespread, right? It's now becoming used because it is in your face. It will eventually be in a consumer norm as well too within the Gmail product. So that's a wider audience. And so once you have audience, more people build on it. Also, it's one of the big areas of enhancements that are being focused on by the platform team for Workspace is to make more functionality available. So there's some really great bot functionality today. In fact, there's a catalog up there. Last time I checked, there's about 100 cool bots up there. Some are built by us, first party. Some are third party by large vendors. I've actually played with building some of my own. I've actually done a couple of blog posts on it. I think it's a new frontier. There's a couple of new features coming out. I'm actually not sure if we've said them yet, so I'm not going to say them right now. But I think they're game changers for bots. And so I would absolutely say if you're listening in and you're interested in chatbots, stay very close to it, because I think 2021 is going to be a great year for bots. And there's an awful lot you can do. It's a whole new paradigm of delivering a user interface, I think, not just into communication inside of Workspace, but definitely application type scenarios of sitting on top of GCP, using machine learning, having very intuitive conversations with intelligent backends. I'm excited about bots, as you hopefully could tell from that page.
It's funny you mentioned that solution, Steve. That's basically there's a code lab linked to that solution as well. That's how I learned how to do chatbots, was from that. And that is, so it's it's an example of the solution gallery was a starting point to something complete, which has turned into a wonderful journey for me into some of the areas that Charles has mentioned, using products like Dialogflow within the chatbots. And I was asked, can you write can you write a Dialogflow chatbot solution? And I've been pondering this one for a while. And one of the things that which is causing hesitation for me is it's a really complicated thing to kind of share as a solution, I feel, just because there's there are quite a few different moving parts in terms of deploying the chatbot, in terms of if you start using Dialogflow, you need to set up service accounts and all these sorts of things. And I just felt it was like tipping the edge of what I felt was useful or appropriate for the gallery.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But one of the things you mentioned there, Charles, was about reducing the friction in terms of people finding solutions and doing stuff. Jasper, I just wondered in terms of your experience, did you get do you get lots of comments around kind of the friction points that people are finding, such as people unaware what Google Apps Script is and how it runs, so they're wondering where their data is going and why they're getting all these scary scope requests?
Two items. One, we mentioned it, was if I share the link with the copy at the end, and then for some it doesn't work. Took me a while to figure that one out. The other one is it's the Google Workspace solution gallery, but people with Gmail accounts, they also go there. And if you start my solution with a Gmail account, you will get some nasty box like, okay, this is not safe, go away, stuff like that.
The unverified window.
The unverified
literally says go back to safety.
Exactly.
And could be friendly more than that.
This is the part where I say, no, it is open source, so you can check the source. It is safe, but that doesn't work for them. And to be honest, they asked me, okay, the most asked question for me is, when is Google going to verify your app? And I'm like, I'm in the G Suite, workplace world. So I drew a line there, and I haven't figured it out. I actually wanted to ask that question, if maybe you'd know it, or how does this work if you don't have a workplace account? I call it a Gmail account. I don't know what the formal name for that is, but like a Gmail account.
It's the consumer account.
Yeah, consumer account.
Which is obviously a big audience for people building these solutions, right? Nobody says you have to be a business to want to automate your time reporting, right? Like you did with your solution, or you want to do a mail merge like yours. So you're absolutely right. And I agree. I mean, this is something we've all lamented about with this platform for a while, is you have to give people safety and warning and comfort. On the flip side, you do scare people off when it doesn't necessarily, have a warm, comfortable message. And obviously, AppScript doesn't control all the, the auth warnings and to some extent. And so, but we always are on the side of don't do it versus do it, because sometimes lost productivity is better than lost data or lost trust. But it is one of those things, and it's something I repeatedly remind Keith and team on the AppScript side to make can we smooth this out? It is something they always do look at, and it is something the whole discovery process for users is something. And when you think about it, I mentioned this explosion in AppScript. One of it is really around people discovering it kind of accidentally. I think the solution gallery, honestly, is a huge impact on people discovering that they want to do AppScript. Another one, probably equally somewhere in there, is simply the ability to create macros, right? I'm writing AppScript and I didn't even know it. And then I share it with somebody and they get this crazy warning that says, go back, don't go here. Your friend is, taking you somewhere you shouldn't go. And so, that is, I'll just admit that is something that it is interesting that, we haven't really fixed that language. But on the flip side, we rather people err on the side of over caution than under caution.
If I,
when you go, Jasper.
The funny thing for me is, if I go to the Cloud Console, now you have the AppScript projects in a separate part, but a lot of companies say, we don't use it. It's okay, please, let me take a look at your Cloud Console, and you see all the AppScript macros and projects. All those people are using AppScript. You don't know about it, but let's see what they're actually doing. So it's indeed, a lot of people use it because they can. It's also one of the things that I also saw was it's maybe not, it's a great way to work around IT, basically, in companies.
Which also is a double-edged sword. It's a great way to work around IT. It's a great way to make IT lock the door when they see you coming.
Yes.
That was a question I was going to ask. It was a great point. I mean, and you're so right. Business users need to solve business problems, and the tools they use are the tools they can grab onto. They find your solution, they want to put it in.
Exactly.
Have either of you been approached or gotten feedback from an IT admin saying, why is this not in the solution gallery, and how did you do this? I mean, have you heard those type of things, or you ever come across that? Like people are like, well, I'd love to trust you, but why aren't you a published? And I know that's a topic for another day, deploying to the marketplace, but do you hear that? Have people said that, or have people asked that specifically? And let me follow that question up. Would you consider taking your solution and building on it and making it a marketplace solution? Is it something you thought about?
So for me, it was like the reason I put this in the solutions gallery was I didn't want to do support requests. And then I ended up doing support requests. But, I think, the fact that it's free and open source, it is what it is. And so hopefully people don't anticipate any sort of service level agreement from me in terms of whether it works or doesn't work or feature enhancements. I actually used it as an opportunity as well just to educate people about these things, around the particular aspects of Google Apps Script and, how it runs on Google servers and, in terms of, people, when they run the code, I, as the developer, I can't, I have no access to their data. And so I ended up with quite a few comments on the blog post, and I actually put like a very detailed explanation. But I thought it was useful for people just to, understand what was going on here in terms of who has their data, where is it going, and just try and give them some reassurance as well in terms of just kind of digital literacy things around,
You're absolutely right.
Reassuring them that, these are exactly the questions you should be asking yourself when you're using applications, even on, in the marketplace, look at the privacy policy and the data policies people are using with those.
Swipe, go.
Exactly. But some people do, I think, get that far down my comments, and if nothing else, it's a shortcut. I can say, if someone does ask me, I can say, just read this.
Absolutely. First, that's a great testimonial for why the Solution Gallery exists, right? We built it for two main reasons. One, it's awareness. What can you do with it? What's possible? Both of you put great solutions out there that show you can do these things. The other one is educate people on it, right? Once they have that awareness, okay, I want to do it. What does it entail? Can I do it myself? Do I need someone to help me? What's the level of depth there? How do I get started? What are the building blocks? And I hope we've accomplished that with that. I remember, I have a background for many years doing business productivity extensibility development. But even when I went to the initial documentation, I saw it was, smaller, modular, very focused on technical theory and very little about problem solving theory. And Jasper, I loved what you said earlier about the fact that I start with a problem and I work my way to the solution and what I need to build on it. And I think that's why the Solution Gallery is interesting. It does kind of say, here's the nuts and bolts of how you get it done. Here's an example of what you can do, and you can kind of reverse engineer it. And that's how I learned many years ago, was reverse engineering things and trying to figure out, okay, here's what it looks like. Now, how do I get there? And then I can actually build additional ones. And that's why I think it's first of all, I thank you for your contributions, because you really do help people understand, I could do this. And here's the path I can take to get there. So that's why I think the gallery has merit. I just love to figure out where we can take it collectively, where we can take it as a small team inside of Google to help kind of, prop it up and get some energy around it.
It sounds like from the comments we're getting, Jasper, this is where your fan club found you. Say hello to Manuel Moby. Hi.
Yeah, that's Dennis. No, it's
you can shout out. It's cool.
It's exactly that, because your question also, would I like to create an app of it? I'm thinking of it. I'm actually working off it, but it's not taking off, and it's not a lot of fun, in my opinion. And for me, the value is in visibility, in contacts, being out there. That's way more value than an application out there. And maybe I think this, what I have is a potential of it has potential to earn money, absolutely. But at this moment, my priorities are elsewhere, and visibility. That's and giving a little bit back is also nice. Like you say, Martin, also educate a little bit. Maybe that is one of the reasons.
Yeah, well, since you're here, I actually do want to point out I'm a bit of an insomniac, and I actually read through, Jasper, your article the other day, Google Script deployment with cloud build, and a couple of them on your Medium blog. So if you aren't a fan of Jasper's yet, he's got some really good writings up there. He's also another good overview of the AppScript dashboard. So thank you for your community contributions, and thank you for giving me something to read very early. The other one I found was really interesting. You're putting out a lot lately. The other one you did, which is really super neat, is how to write a custom function library for Google Sheets. I don't know all the details. I don't think we have that much time left. But that's a great read if somebody wants to look you up on Medium. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm just digging out the Medium link. Keep talking, folks. And
time, Martin, and Steve, and Jasper. Are there any other comments or talks coming in, or anything we want to do, or should we wrap up for the holidays and convene next year? Actually, on that thought, while I am rambling on, unfortunately, if you're still with us and I'm rambling on, I apologize. I love input from folks in comments, whether you're viewing this live or you're actually picking us up on the recording. Put it in the comments below. What shows would you like to see next year? What topics? What forums would you like? Did you like when we brought in the PMs, or would you like more hands-on code? Do you want more? What are you interested in? There's a lot of things out there. If you're interested in being a guest presenter, you have a great idea, a great topic, or a great business opportunity that works in this space, love to hear from you to figure out how we ping it in. I think our goal here is simply to bring birds of a feather together and like everyone's mentioned a bunch of times today, really help share knowledge and help really kind of enjoy the the opportunity that this platform allows us to to bring to other folks, customers, solutions, each other, etc. What do you think, Martin? I know Martin's busy pulling the strings.
There we go. There we go. Right there.
You didn't want anybody to guess at Jasper's last name, because I don't think spell check would put that through. So great reading up there. So some good stuff. Yeah,
just to echo what Charles was saying, we're definitely keen to get your feedback, and if you are doing anything interesting, or you would even like to see us, get, maybe you've seen other solutions in the gallery, you'd like us to get the offers on and just talk a bit more about those. So I'm just going to put up, you can always drop comments into the YouTube videos that we've got, or you can just contact us directly to you at AppScript.info. We're definitely coming back in the new year. One of the reasons that we're definitely coming back is the audio version of the show is now in the top 25 podcasts, Google Podcasts, on FeedSpot or something. So
that's awesome news.
Yeah. So we've got to keep going, folks. We can't stop.
Well, we always feel we're the kind of little brother of cloud platform, because obviously it has a lot of the focus, and a lot, developers obviously flock to the big brother, not the little brother. But the thing we love to point out is we also work very well together, and we're a great starting point for a lot of solutions. So that is awesome news.
So, conscious of time, I think we should, I know Jasper as well has had a long day. So we're very appreciative of you, Jasper, coming along and just sharing your experiences. And I'm glad at the very least we've given some of your fan club an opportunity to see you on screen. And we're definitely going to get you back because of that. Because you bring your own audience. We like those kinds of guests. We like them. So we will be back at some point very soon. So stay tuned to us, and you'll hear more.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, thank you.
I was just going to ask, any thoughts? Any final words?
I enjoyed this reboot, and I'm looking forward to 2021.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks. Well, we'll see you next time. Happy scripting, folks.